do not cook it, do not eat that. It's too much of a risk. It might be not poisonous, but may not be very tasty. So usually that rule have never failed me. I never got mushroom poisoned, but I'm very cautious. Yeah, it offers you a better vista of the entire place. Let's go for a short walk and see if nature has anything to offer. This is the New England jungle. I love how these first colonists and pioneers, they molded this land. They learned different skills and they transformed nature, different things that nature has to offer, into something that is usable. They took charcoal, or they cut the forests, they use oxygen from the air and iron ore, and they produced something that was useful, something that could be passed in the next to the next part of the chain. So they would make nails, and the nails allowed construction. They would make tools. They could produce salt from the seawater by evaporating the water in those big pots. Yeah, after the rain last night, I see many mushrooms. There was like intense rain yesterday. See, the plants are still wet. Yeah, so this is very typical of New England. There are many rocks. This place was covered by the glacier maybe even 10,000 years ago, for sure 15,000 years ago, but maybe even 10,000 years ago. It was inhabited by those Paleo Indians 10,000 years ago. So this place was probably tundra, and then the forest grew over the next millennia, and the forest provided wood, which is an important material for construction or for like providing heat. I can hear some birds nesting there. It's very comfortable today. After the rain, the temperature is around 70 Fahrenheit or 20 Celsius, maybe even less. That's my favorite temperature. Let's see how far we can walk. I can hear the piper somewhere from that direction. Okay, this is very swampy. Super wet. Oh. Can you hear the pipes? Oh, this is a different pipe. You shall not be afraid of me. I'm the Saint Francis. What does this pipe carry? I have no idea. Yeah, I don't see the egret this time. It has nice white color. You see that layer on the top of water? That's actually produced by those the bacteria that transforms iron into limonite. Limonite, I believe, is a carbonate, maybe hydroxycarbonate of the iron, maybe mixed with the oxides, iron oxides. Yeah, see, I think that's why the location of this place is important. The iron ore was actually dug out here in this area, and then probably from some other locations. But even to this day, you see the activity of the bacteria. You see that layer? Yeah, this is the iron mineral produced by the bacteria. I'm not sure if you can walk on the pipe, probably for a short time. Oh yeah, let's do it. Oh, nice. I'm wondering how many people have done it before. It's probably not that deep. Spread the arms for better balance. Yeah, I cannot probably cross it. I mean, I could, but they don't want you to do that. You see that barrier at the end? I feel like a little bit like those Russian YouTubers or Instagrammers that climb the top of the highest building in Moscow, and they take those crazy pictures by hanging on one arm, and then sometimes by accident they fall to their death. Yeah, I wouldn't probably die here. This looks like deeper. This area is deeper. Over there is kind of shallow. Oh yeah, we don't want to die here, so be very, very careful. You can hear the birds. Yeah, I could probably walk around it, but it's okay. We don't have to do it all the way. It's a nice place to relax. Sit down and think about the universe. Let's do this shit. Oh my god, it's so hot. I think it's gonna burn me. It is, like, seriously, the temperature of that. You could probably boil the egg. I'm not sure if this is done by the sunlight or there's something hot flowing through this pipe. It's really warm. I think it's burning my ass. Let's see how long I can take it. The punishment. This could be anywhere. This could be in Siberia. I hope I don't drop my phone. Finding my phone in this water, murky water, would be impossible. Yeah, the special forces should train here, seriously. Especially at night, when you can't fucking see anything. If they fall, they have to make it back up. Or they get to do the push-ups. This is definitely some kind of current coming from that direction. You can see the waves. There's some tiny plants on the bottom of that. Yeah, the water looks very kind of iron rich, I would say. Reddish, brownish. So probably water carries the soluble form of iron from some other location, and then the bacteria reduces or oxidizes the iron to an insoluble form that is deposited here, and then people learn how to use it. Yeah, see, it's very kind of boggy, swampy. Does it smell? It actually does. It's very pleasant smell. It reminds me of Freesia, the South African plant. I don't know what that is, but it smells amazing. Yeah, let's go back to where we came from. Yeah, you can just hide here, lay low. Oh, ducks, little with their babies. You can lay low, nobody can find you. That's my favorite thing to do. Just find some place where nobody can find me and pretend that I don't exist, so people forget about you gradually. That's important, especially for somebody who owns a debt. I don't have any debts, but people who want to disappear from the planet, they don't want to be seen on their radar, they should just disappear somewhere in the forests of the Amazon or even North America. Nobody will find them, just like the Unabomber did. He was living in some cabin in the middle of forest. I'm not advocating. Oh, chipmunk. See that? Wow, it has those stripes. See that? Over there. They are very cute animals. I've never seen them in Poland, but I saw them in the west, in Utah. See? There are many kind of nuts. What is that? Is there an oak tree or what is that? Some kind of nuts, and those animals probably like to eat them. Maybe they were acorns? No, acorns look different. God. Does somebody live here? Yeah, you could definitely sleep underneath and stay protected from the rain. Great place for the homeless. I'm not sure if I'm trespassing. Maybe I should go back to the trail. This looks like a skull of some dinosaur. Okay, we're back by popular demand. Yeah, it's a good place to chill. You can sit here, meditate, watch the flowers. No smell. They just look pretty. Oh, this is the boat. Oh, looks pretty cool. So maybe they would even use the water to transport the products on the boat. Yeah, that makes sense. It was used probably for transportation as a source of iron ore and for transportation. Yeah, last time I came here, this part was under construction. So let's just explore it from this angle. It's a great wall for climbing. Oh yeah. Yeah, so this is probably the iron. No, sorry, this is already like a. This might be the product. Casting house. Okay, so they would receive a molten iron, liquid iron. Crucible, contents of check for. Okay, so the slag was removed. It would float on top of the heavier molten iron that was removed. Yeah, they used simple tools, V-shaped hose called ships to fill the... Okay, so this is the ship to fill the molds, complex molds. The liquid iron flows through a network of shallow V-shaped canals to fill even larger V-shaped trenches dug in the sand floor. So this is the sand floor. So the iron would probably flow here. Yeah, oh yeah. And then it would solidify in those very crude molds. Probably with sand sticking to iron. That's an impurity. Okay, this is the bellow. There was a guide here. Last time I came here, there was a guide, girl, like talking about the process in that building.
Yes.
You didn't have anyone?
They do. They're gonna have a tour at 2 o'clock, and
2 o'clock.
And they're gonna bring a group down here, and they're gonna.
Oh, I see. So now it's just too early. I came too early, right?
2 o'clock. They're
only once a day.
Once a day.
Once a day. Oh, I got you. Yeah, last time I was probably lucky. I was here probably around that time, so it makes sense. Thank you, boss.
You're welcome.
Can you walk around here? Wow. Wow, it smells so great. It took them a long time to reconstruct those objects, probably. They probably hired some people who have the almost extinct skills. I think I got bit by mosquitoes. Yeah, that's why it's important to... Oh yeah, you got mosquito bites everywhere. It's important to keep the lawn in a good shape to prevent the insects from congregating here. Hey birdie. Yes, the cherry tree. That's very old. Already has a lot of cherries. It's still green. I need to come next month maybe to pick them up. This is not a cherry tree. As a child, I used to collect the resin from those trees. It has very interesting properties. Okay, are those like chamomiles? You smell them. Probably not. No, these are not chamomiles. I think these are called margaritas or marigolds maybe. Yeah, this smells really nice. I'm not sure what it has thorns. This plant has thorns. Looks like a little bit like a rose, but it's not.
If you take this tour with another ranger, you may get different stories. Hopefully you don't get contradictory stories. The story I like to tell is the importance of this house to the historic preservation of the British revival. If you came here in 1900 and stood at the top of the Saugus River and looked down the river, this is what you'd see. This photograph was taken in 1900. And you see there's no trace of the ironworks. Actually, that's not true. That's the slag pile. That's the waste from the farm. That was the only thing that was visible. If you stood on the east bank of the Saugus River and looked in this direction, you'd be looking this way. And this is what you'd see. Wow. So once again, there's the slag pile, no other sign of the ironworks. There's a road running right through the middle of this picture. Up until 1949, Central Street in Saugus ran right along this fence line, right across the property. That's why we've got this row of telephone poles to nowhere. This house is in this picture. Can you pick out which house it is? What makes you think so?
Chimney.
Bingo, that's why I brought you over here. You can see the big 6-flue chimney stack. That's really the only clue that's the 17th century house.
Nothing looks the same.
If you stood in Central Street right where we're standing right now and looked at the house in 1900, this is what it looked like. Pretty different, huh?
Only reliable.
This, by the way, is a chicken coop. Remember the chicken coop? We'll come back and talk about it later. If you opened the gate and stood inside the fence and looked at the house, this is what it looked like. And the thing to notice in this picture are all the doors. The reason is the ironworks was only in business for 24 years. It goes bankrupt for the last time in 1670. They tear the dams and the buildings down. But over the next couple hundred years, a succession of other businesses used the Saugus River for water power. And in the 1800s, it's woolen mills. And if you came down Central Street from that direction, you went by a bunch of brick mill buildings that are left from the old woolen mills. And as a matter of fact, you can see one from here. If you look past our forge building, there's a beige building with green shutters. That's what's left of the A.A. Scott Woolen Manufacturing Company. They used to have a whole complex of buildings over there. That's the only one that's left. They owned all this property. They owned this house. They had converted it into a mill tenement. There were 4 apartments for mill workers in the house.
That's the doors.
That's what all the doors are about. But in 1910, the mill owner dies and the mill goes out of business and they start selling off the property. And that happens to coincide with the historic preservation movement in New England. Specifically, there's a gentleman named William Sumner Appleton, who's the founder and first president of the Society for Preservation of New England Antiquities, often referred to as SPNAA. And this is an organization formed for the express purpose of buying up historic properties to preserve them. And in 1910, they hear that a 17th century house has come up for sale in Saugus. So Appleton and his preservation buddies come and look at the house with the possible intention of buying it. But there's another 17th century house in Saugus. On the other side of town is a house we call the Boardman House because it was built by a joiner named Boardman. About the same time as this house, in the same style as this house. It's a little bit smaller. It was originally 4 rooms. This was originally 6 rooms. So Appleton and his SPNAA buddies look at the Boardman House, they look at this house, and they decide that the Boardman House is closer to its original configuration. And they end up buying it. And as a matter of fact, SPNAA still owns and operates that house. Unfortunately, they don't have permanent staff there, so it's only open to the public 1 day a month in the summertime. Oh, and by the way, a few years ago, they decided the Society for Preservation of New England Antiquities was too much of a mouthful, and they changed their name to Historic New England. But it's the same organization. They own properties all over New England. So they buy the Boardman House, they don't buy this house. But Appleton is still concerned that it's a 17th century house and it be preserved. So he puts the word out in the fledgling preservation community, and he runs into a gentleman named Wallace Nutting. Wallace Nutting is a retired congregational minister who's got a hobby of collecting antique furniture and also runs some photography studios. He's a photography buff. And in 1915, he comes and looks at the house, falls in love with it, decides to buy it and restore it to what he thinks it originally looked like. This is a picture taken in 1915 when he's doing the restoration work. So he rips the Victorian porch off the front of the house. He finds a stone foundation for a 17th century porch. So he sticks a 17th century style porch on the front of the house. He takes out the double hung windows and replaces them with leaded glass casement windows. He puts the side gables on the roof. He rips the 2-story lean-to off the back of the house. He completely redoes the house. But he goes one step farther. He buys that mill building. And he starts a business making reproduction colonial furniture. This is the beginning of the colonial revival movement. After 1915, nobody lives in the house. He uses it as a showroom for his furniture and photography business. He fills it full of reproduction furniture, poses models in colonial costumes in it, takes their pictures, and employs some 60 or 70 young women on the top 2 floors of that mill building to hand color these black and white pictures, which he then sells. This is the hand-colored picture he took of the house after he was done with the restoration.
Oh, wow.
So Central Street still runs right here. He puts a stone wall with a turnstile. There's the porch he sits on the front. There's the leaded glass casement windows. There's the facade gables. There's his flower garden. We have an herb garden now that was designed in the 1970s. He liked hollyhocks and hydrangeas. Remember I mentioned a chicken coop. He hires a blacksmith named Edward Guy who's working in Newburyport up the coast to make reproduction colonial hardware for him. And he buys an abandoned brewery building, disassembles it, brings it down here, mashes it around the chicken coop, and converts it to a blacksmith shop. That's our museum building. Our museum building is a chicken coop mashed with a brewery that was a blacksmith shop for 30 years. So if you look at the floor, you'll see it's all covered with burn marks. He also puts an extension on the back of the house for Edward Guy's family to live in. So Edward Guy's the caretaker for the property as well as his blacksmith. Everything's going great for Wallace Nutting. His photography is extremely popular until 1920. In 1920, there's a depression and he's forced to sell off some of his property. At that point in time, he owns 5 colonial houses. He owns 1 in New Hampshire, 2 in Massachusetts, and 2 in Connecticut. And he does the same thing with all of them. He restores them to what he thinks they originally look like and uses them as showrooms for his business. So he sells the house to an antique dealer from Boston who uses it the same way as a showroom for his business. He sells it to another antique dealer. Fast forward to October 1941. In October 1941, the Alumni Association of the Henry Ford Trade School in Dearborn, Michigan buys the house. Not the property, just the house, with the intention of disassembling it, moving it to Greenfield Village, and presenting it to Henry Ford as an 80th birthday present. This is all the rage in the 1920s and 1930s. People are starting these outdoor museums where they move structures to the museum. This is when Old Sturbridge Village is created, Mystic Seaport, Plymouth Plantation, Colonial Williamsburg. This is happening everywhere. Is anybody familiar with Longfellow's Wayside Inn in Sudbury? Nobody? The Wayside Inn was built in 1716. It's one of the oldest operating inns in North America. Henry Ford bought the inn. Now, the inn itself is original to the site, but all the other buildings were moved there by Henry Ford. So he put the grist mill there, he put the chapel there, he put the one-room schoolhouse. You know the nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb? Mm-hmm. You know there really was a Mary. She really had a little lamb. She really brought it to school. Henry Ford bought the school, moved it to the Wayside, and you can go see it. This real estate transaction comes to the attention of a woman named Louise Hawks, who works in the town clerk's office 4 blocks down the street here. And Louise Hawks flips out because she happens to be the president of the Saugus Historical Society, and she's also the treasurer of the local chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And she thought she had a verbal agreement with the antique dealer that if he ever sold the property, he would give the town or the DAR first right of refusal. And then she finds out it's been sold and it's going to move away. So she gets in touch with Henry Ford, and he makes her an offer that if she can reimburse the Alumni Association for what they paid for the house, they can keep the house in Saugus. She needs $12,000. So she starts fundraising. She gets the town to commit a little bit of money, she gets the state to commit a little bit of money, she gets the DAR to commit a little bit of money. She's got school children collecting pennies. But this is October 1941, and something happens on December 7th, 1941 that tends to distract people a little bit from historic preservation. So the Second World War is raging, and she can't quite come up with the money. And Henry Ford gives her an extension on his offer, and another extension, and another extension, and another extension. Finally, William Sumner Appleton and his Spinea buddies get together at the headquarters of Spinea in Boston, and they form a non-profit educational corporation called the First Iron Works Association for the purpose of raising money. And they come up with the $12,000. Now they own the house. Now they have to maintain it, so they have to keep fundraising. In 1947, a friend of a friend puts Louise Hawks in touch with a gentleman who's a retired vice president of the Bethlehem Steel Company who's got a summer home in Beverly up the coast. And she gets him to come and look at the house. Now the story she tells him is that it's the ironmaster's house. The records for the ironworks say that the manager is provided with a house. It's a 17th century ironworks, it's a 17th century house. Everyone assumes it's this house. We now know this house wasn't built till 20 years after the ironworks went out of business. But we're real lucky they